the Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Root Work Hour. Brought to you by the Lucky Mojo Curio Company in Forestville, California. And online at LuckyMojo.com. I'm your announcer, Miss Tammy Lee of TripleCrownConjure.com in Pensacola, Florida. And in just a quick moment, we'll be joined by our co-host, Catherine Ironwood of LuckyMojo.com in Forestville, California, and Conjureman Ali of ConjuremanAli.com in Mission Viejo, California. This week, y'all, we will be joined by a special guest from the Association of Independent Readers and Root Workers, Mary B. of MaryBConjure.com in Sudbury, Massachusetts. And together, they will take your calls and offer advice to address, ameliorate, and remediate your questions and problems about love, money, career, and spiritual protection using traditional African-American folk magic practices of hoodoo, conjure, or root work as defined and described by the greatest spiritual hoodooists of our time. And you can learn a lot just by listening, but if you're selected from among those who signed up at the Lucky Mojo Forum at forum.luckymojo.com and then called into the show, you'll be on the air and receive a free consultation. We'll be going to the phones in just a moment, but first let's catch up with our co-hosts, Miss Cat and Conjureman Ali. Miss Cat?
Hi, Miss Tammy Lee. How are you doing?
And doing grand. Absolutely grand. Thank you for asking.
Good. Well, we got off to a good start today.
Yes, we did.
Not like last week. Well, it's nice to hear your voice. Things around here are just as rainy as can be. They keep on telling us the drought is not over, and I know it's not over, but it's pretty wet out. And, of course, for us here in California, it isn't the rain that lands on our particular patch of ground that is what gets us through the dry summers. It's the snow that lands up in the Sierras. And people say, well, don't you all have reservoirs? Yes, we do. But even if our reservoirs were completely filled with all the water they could hold and there was no snowpack, when we drained those reservoirs, there'd be no more snow going down into those reservoirs. So the reservoirs that we have in California don't fulfill our entire needs like they do in some other parts of the world. So for those of you who are praying people, pray for more rain. We still need more. We need the nice, gentle rains, but we are still in a historically very dry time. So I always say, ask God, and maybe God will provide for us, More rain for California, please. Anyway, that's my news. In other work, we've been doing a lot of database planning. Now, I know y'all don't think that's exciting and has nothing to do with spiritual supplies and spiritual spells. No, it doesn't. But we've been working very hard on the database, trying to get everything hooked up and connected. And I just want to give a nice shout-out of praise to Nagashiva and Leslie, who have been working to coordinate some of the most uncoordinated portions of our database. When you have a company like ours, everything is handmade, like in a little boutique. But it's also one of the largest companies making spiritual supplies, and that means that we need to create a record of what we've made, where things are stored, when things are purchased, how much we paid for them, and, it's a business. And so the database is the key to that business. And Leslie, if you can hear me now, thank you. And Nagashiva, I know you're here. And
yeah, even the database is handmade.
Yeah, even the database is handmade. That's right. That's right. No, for real. We don't hire some giant corporate turnkey solution. Everything is done with linkages and little bits of code. And that's what happens when you grow your business, what they would say, bootstrapping or organically. And I want to thank everybody who listens to this radio show. People think of us as a big, giant company, but really we are a small, giant company, and we just do the best we can with what we've got. And we We try to make everything that people need. Sometimes we run a little behind. I know that right now there's a couple of people complaining. Somebody's slamming things. Can you stop it right now? Sometimes, it stopped. Sometimes customers complain, nope, it's still slamming. Whoever's doing the slamming, I got 3 people here who it's possible. All of you, shut up. Thank you. Good. Hey, I can be a harsh taskmistress. Y'all shut up with your damn slamming. What I was saying, some of the customers, will say, well, how come I didn't get my package sent to me the next day? Well, you may have ordered something obscure. Let's say you ordered, oh my gosh, one of the least common oils, such as Vishnu oil. Well, we make these oils in batches of 7 or 14, depending on how popular they are, or more if they're really popular. And nobody's ordered Vishnu oil for a while, and we're out of it, and we got to wait till we can get some made. Okay, slamming again. Somebody, mute everybody, Nagashiva. I'm done. Just mute them all. Mute them all, and we'll figure out who it is, okay? They can't be doing that. Okay. And when we when we have to make the Vishnu oil, we got to make 7 of them, and so you might have to wait a day or 2 or even 3 to get your product made, whereas we can fill common things like Van oil or Fast Luck oil right off the shelves. So to all those in the lab, thank you, and you all are doing a great job. I've been keeping track of it and working with Heidi and the crew. So that's what's going on around here. Personally, I've been working on the Trolldom book of Dr. Johannes Gardbach. I'm telling you, that is a translation problem and a half. I just had to look up a word I'd never heard before, and of course there is no translation for it. So now it's another Swedish puzzle, and I'm going to have to wait till Johannes and me get together online to figure out what that word is so I can translate it. And so if those waiting for that Trolldom book, it's coming. Never fear. Okay, I mean, it really is. It really is, and it is a labor of love. Okay. Now, turn this over to Ali and see how he's doing. Nagashiva, you can unmute Ali, and I'll bet you he wasn't the one who was slamming.
No, I certainly wasn't.
Okay.
I tend to mute myself while you're talking because I shuffle my cards from time to time.
Yeah.
But I am doing great. I've been quite busy this week. It's interesting. What goes on with your Lucky Mojo and in your life seems to line up quite a bit with mine a lot. We're not always doing the same things, but there's trends that we both seem to follow, and we've got to look at our charts at one point. But I've just spent this past week, I've been working with logistics. So while I'm not making databases myself, I'm part of a group of people who are looking into databases and doing lots of collecting of information and digitizing it. So it's funny that we're on the same wavelength there. I have been busy doing that, and it's been slow work. It's been busy work, what I like to call, but it has been rewarding, and of course lots and lots of root work and reading. I've got a nice batch of geomantic readings, people wanting to get life readings, which I haven't done on the radio show for quite some time, but it's nice to get a chance to get back into doing those for clients. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful week and lots of fun things going on over here in Southern California, though not as much rain.
Well, pray for more. And good luck with your database. As a Taurus, I'm going to tell you, you're going to love it.
Yes. I'm already liking it. I am.
Yeah, it's the mental equivalent of having all of the plants in neat little rows in the field.
Yes.
That's all I can say.
There's even something aesthetic about looking at it. You go, it all looks so beautiful.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's all lined up. It's all cute. It's 4 square and stands firm and incorruptible.
Exactly. Well, that's the hope, yes.
I know. Seriously. I'm going to say just something a little bit on the side here between you and me. I do a lot of readings for female business women, entrepreneurs. They they know about me. They know what I do. They know what I started this little company by hand after a divorce, and they're sometimes in a similar position. Middle-aged women want to make something of themselves, don't want to be a wage slave anymore, can't rely on a second income because they're in between partners. And it's amazing how many of these women who call me up are Tauruses. Some Capricorns, some Libras, some Virgos. I mean, there's a few of a little bit of everything. But I almost could just hang up a shingle that says, Tauruses who want to start businesses, come here. And some of these women, you think they're calling a card reader, right? They're going to get like, well, tell me what no. They want to say things like, how do you do search engine optimization? And they pay me for a reading on how to do search engine optimization.
Who better to go to than a fellow female Taurus entrepreneur?
That's right. And they're never the ones. When I say, do you have a business card? They go, yeah, I already did that. I mean, because they already read what I said.
Yes.
Then I'll show them the business card, and I'll say, well, let me see your business card. And then they'll show it to me, and I'll say, well, problem with your business card is it's blank on the back. Is there a reason it's blank on the back? I don't know. They come that way. Nope. The only reason your business card should be blank on the back is that if you routinely use it to write down URLs of websites. But your website should be on the front. But if you want to give them like interior pages, okay. So if you're not going to be doing that with your business card, then print something on the back. And they all go, oh, but that's more expensive. And I'm like, by how much? A penny? Come on. So yeah, I sit around and do that, and it's funny because I love prayer, I love root work, I love candle magic, but I'd say that in the past 2 months that I've been doing an awful lot of business consultations. Love them too, really do love them too, and I'm always willing to do it. But it's kind of a funny thing to be a root worker whose specialty is business consultations. All right, so let's bring in our guest, Miss Mary B.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi.
Glad to have you on.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
Well, tell us what's going on in your world. Everybody knows Mary B., member of AIR. What's new in your world since the last time you were on this show?
Well, I've been pretty busy doing a mix of work, not just one kind. Healing, love, money. So it's been a mix of all kinds of work, lots of readings. I think I'm getting into that part of the year where people are going to want to have year readings. So I'm getting into that. Otherwise, I've been busy with work and busy with getting ready for the holidays, and it's awfully cold out here. But we did have snow a couple weeks ago, but that is melting, so it is not cold enough for snow.
And not cold enough for snow. Okay. Around here it's almost never cold enough to snow. But I'll tell you, I have seen it snow when I lived back in the Midwest. That's a strange phenomenon. I mean, seriously, a lot of people in America think, oh, snow, it's snow. Everyone, But really, if you were raised like me and never saw snow and it comes down, that's interesting. Frozen water in tiny pieces.
Yeah.
How interesting.
We had snow we had snow when I was living in Virginia and I grew up there. But since I've been living in Southern California, no snow. So I'm in that weird where some part of me, there's a nostalgic element of snow.
Yeah.
But there's another part that goes, I'll never see snow here in Orange County.
Well, the reason I mention it is when I first began teaching hoodoo to people, I learned it in Oakland and in California, and it doesn't snow in Oakland to speak of ever, and I would be told things like bury this, do this, dig a hole, do that. When I went online and began to teach people online, they'd always say things like, well, what do I do? The ground is frozen, and I'm like scratching my head. The ground is frozen? You're kidding. Really?
Yeah.
So then what happened was I was teaching this course that I do in Hoodoo Root Work, a 1-year course, correspondence course, and somebody said, can I use melted snow water? And I'm like,
yes, you can.
Right. And I'm like, wow, whole new world open up, snow. It was something interesting to me. All right, well, enough of that. But winter is upon us, I guess, and for here it's rain. Now we have a panel discussion tonight, and as advertised, it's going to be hands-on healing and foot washing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mary B. Mary B., tell us the role that that hands-on healing plays in your practice, especially in these internet days. Do you do hands-on healing or foot washing or blessing of the hands or any of those kinds of things for clients?
I have done those things, and it's some of my favorite kind of work to do. I have I've had clients from all over, but I have had some locally. I live in the New England area in Sudbury, which is about an hour away from Boston. And I will drive and see people at their homes or whatnot and do hands-on healing for them. I think that it's important to remember these kinds of works, especially now in the Internet age, because I really do believe that unlike things like ceremonial magic and stuff like that, hoodoo is very practical, and you have to getting your hands into it and getting a little bit dirty is, in a good way, is essential to maintaining the tradition. So I try when I can, when someone is close enough to me, to do hands-on work. If someone is far away from me and I can't get to them, I may encourage them to do hands-on healing for themselves, like in tandem with what I can do from a distance. In that case, I do a lot of work with dolls that I can bathe or otherwise work with as a doll baby, along with the person's getting their own healing by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've used the term proxy doll to describe dolls that you bathe. And that's a very interesting subject because it combines several different forms of magic into one. But I want to get back to actual foot washing. I'm going to talk a little bit about when I was young. You could go and there were candle shops that there was a back room or side room where you could go and get foot washing, not in public, not in front of all the customers. And but the guy would take you back in the back, or the gal would take you back in the back, and they would do that. Didn't usually need an appointment, but what would sometimes happen was one of the older customers would be told, could you just watch the shop while I go do this foot washing? And, people trusted one another, and that's how it was, And in some cases, the foot washing was free or for a donation only. In other cases, you had to pay. Sometimes it would be given as a result of a reading. In other words, the reading would say you need a cleansing of your hands, and you would be, taken aback, and a cleansing and prayer would be done over your hands. So I participated in and witnessed quite a lot of that. You had to really be a subject of it in order to learn it back in those days. And nobody taught it because, there you are, you're in the shop, and the guy goes, well, you need a hand washing, but he's talking to somebody else. You can't go in and spy on it, So you had to say, well, what if I needed hand washing? And he'd look at you like, but you don't. And that would be that. I will confess to a couple of times coming up with a scenario like one I had heard in order to get that prescribed to me, because how else was I going to learn it, right? I'd say, well, my feet tingle. My feet did not tingle. I'd say, my feet tingle. I feel something wrong with my feet. Well, we'll do a foot washing on you. That's how I got my first foot washing. I straight up told a fib to get that foot washing because it was not something that was just, given out to anybody. So how about you, Ollie? Do you have any use of that kind of hands-on work in what you do?
Absolutely. It's what I consider some of the older aspects of Conjure and Hoodoo, and something, in fact, for me, one of the first workings that I did, it's fascinating little parallel here. I was taught to do foot washing when I was learning under my teacher. It was one of the first things she taught me because she said it's the ultimate sign of service. You are putting yourself in service of people, washing other people's feet. Our Lord did it. You have to learn to do it And it is biblical. It comes out of a Judeo-Christian practice. This isn't something unique to hoodoo. It's not like a hoodoo practice, but it's part of the Judeo-Christian roots of conjure and hoodoo. And so I did one of my earliest workings, if you will call it that, or my first acts as a spiritual leader in a community was foot washing at the direction of my teacher, and it was an extremely moving and deep experience. Interestingly, the month after that, my working was a hot foot, so something about the feet was my, practical Taurus, something about the feet. That's the type of working I did early on. But I still do foot washings today. They're not just for cleansing. Because foot washing and the idea is, you're cleansing something. Yeah, if someone has some roots put on them, foot washing is great, especially if someone's laid down tricks. But it's also an act of blessing. It's also an act of healing. And it is very powerful, and it's something that I think in the internet age we kind of lose touch with, if you'll pardon the pun, because the act of touch in of itself is very healing and powerful. And a lot of indigenous healing practice involves some type of touch, whether it's touching a person's hands or feet or shoulder. And so for me, foot washing represents not only the spiritual roots of hoodoo, but that practical element of physically touching someone with power, with grace, and as an act of service. I do still perform it, and it is, to this day, I would say, probably the most moving type of service that I can provide for a person.
Yeah, it is a service, and it is also done, and this is in response to Helen Sams 1 in the chat room, who asked about how to remove bad spells. Bathing, washing, and being washed by somebody as opposed to washing yourself is done for the removal of spells. It's also done for the alleviation of medical ills. And this is a controversial topic, especially with a person in the medical profession among us, and with the litigious society we live in. But so we would always say seek medical assistance first, but a spiritual foot washing, hand washing, head washing, whatever, would always be indicated if you had a medical ill, either in and of itself or as the result of a spell cast upon you. And
when I do foot washing, I, as a nurse, I can often see things. People may complain, I have tingling in my feet and my legs. I think someone's put roots on me, which may very well be true. When I get a look at their feet and their legs, they may have the beginnings of venous ulcers, which can cause that, or neuropathy caused by undiagnosed diabetes. So because I'm in the medical profession, I can say things like that and say, hey, look, this is what I see. You need to go see a doctor. But it is a fine line that you have to walk.
Yeah, it is. And then Frank Jellyfish asked in the chat room, and a good question, can you do this for yourself, or are we talking about having it done? I'd like to address that very briefly. Yes, of course you can do it for yourself. Usually you will have received instructions from the root worker from whom you purchased your supplies, or from a friend who is a practitioner who can pass along an idea to you. Mix this and this and that and make a 3-ingredient bath, or buy this product, add it to water, boil for so many minutes. There will be instructions of some sort. You're not usually just turned loose to, hey, go bathe yourself, it'll work. So there are traditions within it, even when you do it for yourself. However, that having been said, there is a role for having the bath administered. And there are people who cannot bathe themselves, notably children, infants, and the aged. And they need assistance for a physical bath anyway. And so making it a spiritual bath is another way to work. So I have found that the effect upon me of receiving any kind of hands-on healing, for instance, a wahoo bath or sprinkle or whatever you want to call it, even a spray with and spin with, with room spray type sprays. All of those have a different effect on me than doing it myself, unless I prepare myself very deeply, because for me, when I do a bathing for myself, there is a tendency just to slip into, oh, well, I'm just bathing myself. Whereas if someone is doing it for me, the very specialness of the act and their energy focused on me is a bit more powerful and will break my my chain of thought of normality into such a way as to cast me into more of a spiritually receptive state. I hope that was an answer that made sense, Frank. I hope you got that.
I think that makes perfect sense. And it's interesting because people do things differently. For example, for me, I think that bathing is something that anyone can do on their own. And while hands-on work in that is great, it's also a great entryway into learning spiritual practice. It's not as complex as doing a moving candle spell or making a jar spell or a mojo back. Brewing herbs into a tea and using them to bathe yourself is a great way to learn how to do this type of work. And it is something that is within the skill of most people, I would say. But something like foot washing is something that is a communal act or an act between people. I, for example, wouldn't prescribe people to do foot washings on themselves. This is something that you do as a religious or spiritual act with someone else. Growing up, going to church and Baptist church in particular, you would have people who would just foot wash and you would stand in lines. Seriously, stand in lines and walk up, and then someone would wash your feet and do the foot washing, and it would be a deep personal moment. And you would take turns, and then the next week it would be you giving the foot washing. So, bathing, I think absolutely. Foot washing for me, I think that's much more of a two-person job at least.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to I just need to break in here. I quoted the wrong person. I said it was Frank who asked that question. It was actually Doc Murphy.
Doc Murphy.
The chat room scrolls off my screen, and I'm like trying to remember this question, but I forgot who said it. my apologies. Doc Murphy was the one who asked that question. All right. Well, the other thing about this kind of work, and that's important, is that it requires some privacy. And other than the foot washing in a church context, which is, held in public and is part of a public ritual or ceremony, or the kind of related but tangential forms of cleansing with herbs that we find in some of the Afro-Caribbean traditions, which are not found in the hoodoo generally, but are, equivalent types of public cleansings. Most times when you go to a hoodoo root worker for a cleansing, it will be held in private. And so this brings up another aspect of the work that I need to address, which is trust and the abuse of trust. I'm going to tell a story, and I'm not trying to be, like shaming to the dead, but this man is dead. There was a man in the Bay Area who was known for his hands-on healing, and he was quite good at it. He had a lot of people who went to him. He was a decent, honest man to everybody except for young black teenage females. And I even had a foot washing by him, and it was completely above board, nothing, because I was a young white female, and I guess I just wasn't the type he was interested in abusing. Nor did any males ever talk about his abuse. However, I have talked to a number of women now middle-aged who were sexually abused by him one way or another, mostly just groped on the breasts as part of a body wash. And they'd even come with their mothers. And he would say, well, now, to the mother, he'd say, now I've got to take her in the back, but she'll be safe with me. I'm a bishop of the church. And he was a bishop in a spiritual church. And he would pull their blouses down and grope their bosoms. He never, as far as I know, actually raped anybody, but he was doing something very improper. And so I bring it up because I was there, and like I said, I knew this man. And when I met women my age and a little bit younger than me who had told me, I'd never go to him because blah, blah, blah. I couldn't believe it at first. I couldn't believe that a guy that I knew would do such a thing, but he did. And so that is an interesting thing to talk about. And I just, again, not saying that everybody who does this is bad. And in fact, like I said, I never even had a bad experience with him, and he was quite respectful to me.
You know, and this is why in things like this, when I do hands-on stuff, especially stuff that's intimate, and I consider foot washing to be fairly intimate, I insist, if it's someone of the opposite gender, I insist on a chaperone. Even if it's just a roommate in the house, that you know, I won't do it alone. If it's if it's someone that I don't know well.
That's a very good practice to have.
Yeah. And Professor Porterfield, Charles Porterfield, says the same thing. He says if women come to his house, they've got to have a chaperone. That is a really good idea. This man separated young girls from their mothers. He would say, "Well, Mama, you just sit out there and wait. I'll be done with her in 15 minutes or whatever." And he would do it. But then those girls were never told because they didn't know what to expect. They thought this is part of what you're supposed to get. And well, I'm just saying that a chaperone is the way to go. And and yet, as I'm going to say, I had private sessions with this man and no chaperone, and he did not abuse me, probably because of my skin color and or maybe my mean temperament. I don't know.
But I think it goes to a very important point that this work is intimate work, and it is very, very personal. And so you need to have some discernment as a client. We often talk from the perspective of professionals. Mary B., yourself, and myself are all professionals here. But for the client, you have to have some discernment. When you go to a root worker, you're basically saying, I'm putting my trust in this person, whether they're doing hands-on work or any other type of work. And if you have some tinge of doubt, right, if you have some tinge of doubt or you don't feel like you can trust that person, either talk with them and find out why it is, or just understand that isn't the root worker for you. In this day and age, with a plethora of root workers available, it isn't like you only have one root worker in the village and that's it. Right? You can go online and find plenty. AIR gives you a whole directory of people. If you don't get along with ConjureMan Ali, there's Kat that you can go to. If you don't feel like you can trust Kat, there's Deacon. There's all sorts of people that you can go to. And so trust is very important. Discernment is very important. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to put your trust in that person? And if the answer is no, then don't do it. Don't put yourself in compromising situations. And it is very important to do it because spiritually, the act of placing trust in a root worker is powerful. That's where the power comes from. That's where the power is generated from. The two of you working together in trust, seeking out the power of the Lord is how this work is done with faith.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Actually, there's a third point I'm going to talk about here, and I don't want to just go into the negative aspects of this because this is very good work, but I do want to say one other thing. There have been reports of people who are somehow doing, quote, long-distance healings and cleansings in which they require the client to be naked in Skype. Okay,
what?
Just saying.
Say what?
Naked in Skype. Yeah, Skype video conferencing software. Yeah. So just
that
saying.
Makes my head hurt.
Yeah. No, this is for real. So just again, not good, and do take care of your integrity. And as someone posted there, Logan, 1965. If it feels creepy, it probably is.
Yeah, that's a really good model.
I'll actually go all out on this one because what I was told was that this person sent. It's a male, I might as well say. It was a male preying on females. He sent products, to the females, and then had them wash themselves with them while he watched. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So if it sounds creepy, don't do it. But there is something to be said. I mean, the discernment is obviously very important here, but there is something to be said about hands-on work. And Mary B., I was wondering if you could speak to this. As a person who does, you are a medical practitioner, you also do quite a bit of healing work. In fact, on your profile, you have this wonderful photo of foot washing. You can testify to the power of hands-on healing. Distance healing is great, and it is important, and it is very effective. but there is something about the act of physically doing a foot washing or doing some type of physical in-person, even if it's not touch, but an in-person healing that makes it uniquely powerful. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. Before I got into root work, I had Reiki. I was given Reiki, and I would use it occasionally in my nursing practice and also when I worked in hospice briefly while I was in school. And it really is, touch is so important in our world. I think that most humans are touch-starved in a way. And I really do think, and people are wary, especially in our Western culture, sometimes we associate touch with intimacy, sexual intimacy. And I had a good friend who was a massage therapist, and she had a little postcard in her office that said, you can touch without, it's something like you can have touch without sex or pain. And so you can use your hands to do things. Touch doesn't have to be sexual, and it doesn't have to be painful. It can be healing. And
right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It was wonderful, and it's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
I just think that when you do healing, hands-on stuff nowadays, you just have to communicate what's going to happen to your client. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them. If you
right.
if you just make everything like, okay, now ask permission too, because just because someone gives you permission in the beginning doesn't mean that they're not going to get squicky about it and change their minds later. So I like to tell them as I'm going, okay, I'm going to put the water in the basin and I need you to sit down. I'm going to ask you to take your socks off, and then we're going to put them in the water. And you go like that. And that way, if someone feels like, okay, I can't do this, I have to stop, that way everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's a deep subject, and I really thank you, Mary B., for bringing this to us. It's a part of Hoodoo I never want to see lost. I want to see hands-on healing.
Same here.
Foot washing always stay with us, even in this internet age. I think it's real important because Hoodoo is a cultural tradition. It's not just a collection of spells, and that's what we're looking forward to. All right, coming up, we're going to be going to some calls.
Well, yes, ma'am, Miss Cat, and y'all. Hey, the Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Rootwork Hour with your hosts, Catherine Ironwood and Conjuman Ali, and this week's very special guest, Mary B. of MaryBConjure.com in Sudbury, Massachusetts. We'll be right back, and we'll be taking calls from our listeners, answering their questions through spiritual divination and prescribing down-home conjure remedies and remediation. Our calling clients are selected from among those who will fill out a short questionnaire at the Lucky Mojo Forum at forum.luckymojo.com. And you can listen to the show online through Blog Talk Radio or via telephone by dialing 818-394-8535. And if you have filled out a client questionnaire at the forum, please dial in now to 818-394-8535 and press 1 to let us know that you're available to be on the air. And we will select callers by their area code, and if your area code is announced, we'd like for you to say hello and let me, your announcer, Miss Tammy Lee, read a brief description of your situation before turning it over to our host. Now it's time to go to the phones and take our first new client, and our first new client is calling in from area code 415 from Redwood City, California. This is Peggy. Peggy, are you there, caller?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I sure can, and welcome to the show. You're a little low, but that's okay. We Nakashiva can probably raise the volume on the pot, and so everything's fine. And if he needs you to do something else, he will instruct you. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read the brief synopsis of your case. And she writes, number one, she's never had a reading or root work with any members of AIR before. And I'm sorry, my page just skipped. So here we go. I've had more than 30 relationships, 30. and have never been happy in any of them. I'm still single, and after lots of ceremonies to get to the root of my problem, I'm starting to feel that it's a generational curse. However, I visited a witch doctor in 2002 who told me that I had a dark energy floating around me and that I needed some potions from him, otherwise I would always have bad luck with men. I didn't buy his potions, but signed his guest book on my way out. Almost an hour later, I had a strange skin problem, and I've had problems finding partner/soulmate. I want to find out if I've been cursed or hexed. Oh, my. Turning this back over to you.
All right. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I saw your post before. It was shortened, and it was very, very, very long. And you had mentioned that you had visited a witch doctor in South Africa. Is that correct? All right. And said you had a dark energy floating around you and that you needed potions. Now, I'm going to say something about this because I don't know this person and I'm not reading yet. I will read in a moment. But there is a page that you ought to read, and I think they'll put it through the chat room. It's a page that I wrote a long time ago called Readers, Root Workers, and Black Gypsies. And this page describes the most common forms of fraudulent reading to frighten a client into buying potions, oils, baths, whatever it might be, spells. And for some reason, since the since the 1890s anyway, this almost always takes the form of a script, and the script almost always contains the words, a dark spirit, a dark energy, a hole in your aura, a dark hole in your aura. The word dark is used a lot, not always. Black can be used. There's other words like that. And floating around you, over your left shoulder, behind you, and so forth, are almost always part of this script. The script is taught from one person to another. And I'm not saying that this is was a fraudulent witch doctor, but what I am saying is you just sent up not just one red flag, but a whole, hillside full of waving red flags with the words. Now, and then I know you didn't know this. And so you come to me innocent of that, quoting what I know to be a well-known script. Okay? So the page is called luckymojo.com/blackgypsies.html. And I need to explain that word, black gypsies, because people go, what is that about? The term comes from an old blues song, in fact, a series of blues songs. And you'll have to read the page to understand it. The people involved are not necessarily either gypsies or black. So having said all of that, now I'm going to do a reading on it. And I guess what we're talking about is you've done a lot of ceremonies to get at the root of your problem. You've had more than 30 relationships. How old are you now?
I'm 42.
22?
No, 42.
42. Okay, got it. Now I understand. 42. And now you're having you had strange skin problems. Were those taken care of?
Yeah, I only had the strange skin problem for 3 months. It was just this huge sap that started growing.
So your interest is not so much whether this witch doctor put something on you, which people do. That's another, not only frightening people, but sometimes they will actually hit you up with something to get you to come back. Well, we're going to leave that question aside. I think your real question then is the problem is finding a partner or soulmate. Is that, would you say that's your real question?
Yeah, it's really love and career, but I wanted to tackle the love part first, and I knew
that. Well, it's not first. You only get one question on this show.
Oh, yeah. Just want to tackle the love.
Okay, we're going to go with love. All right. So not whether you're cursed. I think that, in fact, something was done to you, in a mild way to frighten you, but that's all I'm going to say on that. So let's look at your love situation then instead. All right. The first card I have is a card called the Knight of Swords. And this is a card of disorganized energy. It shows a person rushing into what may be a battle, waving a sword, but they're very ill prepared. And they have a flock of birds overhead. The wind is blowing so hard they can't stay steady. It tells me that you're not focusing your energy on one type of person. You're kind of brushing about. May I ask what sign of the zodiac you are?
I'm a Taurus.
A Taurus? Well, then you should be settling down, baby. Now, the reason Tauruses end up with so many relationships is because Tauruses are always up for relationships. But if you don't find the right one, you just keep searching until you do. But you will be happier as a Taurus with a good relationship. Well, this tells me you've been looking for the wrong people in the wrong places. And part of it is that a disorganized courageousness, rushing into things, but not really studying hard on them. The next card is a card that tells me that I'm not seeing a curse here per se. I'm just seeing some, what I might call unresolved energies. The second card is called the Wheel of Fortune, and it relates to revolving, changing, and turning things. It talks about the four signs of fixed signs of the zodiac: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. It also has these animals that represent these signs reading books, and then there's a wheel, and on the wheel there are evil-intentioned people, snakes, well-intentioned people like the psychopomp deity Anubis, and a Sphinx of Justice holding a sword. And this says that your wheel is still in spin. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, is there an astrological basis for what's gone wrong? Because I'm not seeing a curse. And it may be that you might do with some astrological counseling more than just a card reading. As a long-standing problem, cards don't usually cover, 20 years of your life, not in one throw of 3 cards. The third card I have here is a bit of a troubled card, and I'm sorry to say that because I was hoping this will all end really soon. But the card is called the Ten of Wands, and it shows a person carrying 10 heavy sticks, and it shows a worn-out condition, a situation that has not yet resolved, and it may take a little while to resolve this. I would ask you, have you ever had an astrological consultation?
No, not yet.
No. I would try that. I know you had mentioned before your thing was cut off that you had done all sorts of things, including exotic shamanic drugs and every type of thing to try to get this thing together. And what I'm seeing is that this was a disorganized effort on your part. That this Knight of Swords shows disorganization. The wheel then turns. You try again, and then now there's come to be a feeling of tiredness. And yet that goal of the little house and the little garden is still in sight. That person is almost giving up, though. They buried their head in their pile of sticks, and they're just sort of trudging along. I would say that if it were me and I was in your situation, I got these 3 cards, I would look more deeply into what was causing that unsettledness. And that's about the best I can say on this one. That's how I perceive it. Let me turn this over to Mary B. and see what she has to say.
Okay. Well, hi, Peggy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks.
Good. I pulled 3 cards myself. I'm reading with the Hanson Roberts deck, and the first card that I get is the 3 of Swords. So this definitely speaks to your heartbreak because it's a big red heart with 3 swords stabbed through it, and there's rain clouds in the background. So this is definitely, your heartbreak is definitely showing, and this is, wow. I can understand your frustration here. But the next card is interesting because it's the World. The World shows a beautiful woman dancing in the sky surrounded by the 4 animals of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And what this says to me is I get from this card like an ancestral energy. I don't necessarily see a curse like what, Kat said, and I agree with her. But I do believe that your ancestors can help you out with this. and that you need to be paying some more attention to them. The reason why is because our ancestors want to see us in happy relationships. They want to see us marry and have children and stuff, because it perpetuates the family line. And even if you choose not to have children, they want us to be happy and partnered and keep the love going, as it were. So I think that working with ancestral spirits and all of that would be very, very helpful for you. The last card is Five of Cups. And this shows someone looking at 3 cups that have been overturned, and they're focusing only on them, and they don't see the 2 full cups that are behind them. This says to me, you're definitely focusing on your losses here, but there is still hope. You just have to turn around and see it. Sometimes this card can indicate a multi-generational curse, but because of that World card, I really don't think that there's a heavy multi-generational curse on you. I think that you've just had a run of extremely bad luck that has led to a self-fulfilling prophecy of, I can't be happy in a relationship. So that's kind of what I see.
Yeah, I'm going to point out just one thing here. Your second card was the World, and my second card was the Wheel of Fortune. Very correlated cards. And so I'm going to say that this is a long-scale problem. Cannot be solved by a quick reading on the radio, and I would again urge you to try an astrological reading, something zodiacal, because both of those cards have the 4 zodiac animals on them, and the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. Let's turn this over to Ollie. What do you think as far as root work, and then we'll all pitch in on that too.
I couldn't agree more with your reading, and I think getting an astrological reading is very important, because the root work that I'm going to recommend can also be done timing it to the right astrological timing. So getting a reading from someone like Deacon Millet or a qualified astrologer is the way to go with this. They can look at the long term, see what's going on, and also give you the right timing to do this. Off the top of my head, I would say do this work when the moon is in Taurus, but they may give you something a little bit more specific in that regard. So what I want you to do is take a piece of paper, and you're going to fold this paper in half. On the left side, you're going to write all your bad experiences or the bad qualities that you've dealt with in your failed relationships, okay? So this could be something specific, infidelity, or it can be something more general, feeling unsatisfied, person disappears, whatever it is. All those bad qualities you're going to write on the left. On the right, you're going to write all the good qualities, the things that you want out of a relationship, the things that you desire. I want to find fulfillment physically, emotionally, mentally. I want a person who's generous. Divide them up. Then you're going to rip this paper in half. Okay, you're going to be careful so you don't destroy the paper, but you're going to rip it in half so that you've separated the 2 pieces. You're going to set aside the good one for now, the good list we'll call it, and you're going to take the naughty list, and you're going to fold that up and place that in a censer or a thurible, and you're going to put some uncrossing incense on top of it. You're going to mix in some rose petals and just a little bit of saltpeter, okay? You're going to mix this up, make a nice little cone out of this, and light the incense. And this is going to spark and shoot up, and you're going to, ever so carefully, that you might want to do this outside or on a surface where nothing burns, because the sparks will shoot. You are going to leap over it 3 times, okay? Again, do this carefully. Don't wear a skirt. Don't wear anything that can catch fire. You're not causing a fire, but there are sparks that will shoot out of the incense, and you're going to leap over it 3 times. Then let the incense burn all the way through. Make sure that the paper is burnt to ash. If it doesn't, take a match and burn it so that the paper completely is burnt along with the incense. You are then going to take that to a moving river, and you are going to throw it over your left shoulder, walk away, and do not look back. You are sending all the bad patterns, everything that was bad in your past, those bad relationships, away and far, far away from you. You are going to come back home, and you are going to create a bath for yourself. Get yourself some violet leaves, rose petals, and rue. Brew this into a tea, pour into a bathtub with water, and you're going to bathe yourself from head to toe, washing away all the hurt, washing away all the pain, washing away all the suffering that you have gone through. Let those healing waters mend thy heart. Step out of that, air dry, gather a bit of the used bath water. You can gather it in a bowl, in a cup, whichever you prefer, and dispose at a crossroads. It is important that one goes to the river and the other goes to the crossroads. You're scattering it far, far away, invoking both of these energies. Okay? Then you're going to come back home, and you're going to take the good list, the list of all the qualities you desire. You're going to fold that up, place it into a mojo bag. You're going to put it in with some rose petals, some violet leaves, some cuba berries. You're going to hold it up to your mouth, and you are going to breathe your prayer into that bag, tie it up shut, calling your lover to you, wherever this person is, the person that will stand by you for life, who will be a partner for life. And you're going to carry that mojo bag with you. Feed it once a week. I also recommend that you spray it with some of your personal scent. If you have a perfume that you use quite often, use that. Also a little bit of your sexual fluid, just a light dab on there along with a little bit of your perfume. Once a week, feed it, carry it close to your body, and this will draw to you the lover that will be with you the rest of the day.
Yeah. That's good. Just wanted to make sure, because we're running through these through the chat room. The bath was violet rue, and was rose petal the third thing?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Got it. Thank you. We're trying to follow you talk fast.
I did. I was looking at our time.
I like this sort of work because it allows you to do something that's going to really break your patterns, and also you're going to think about these things as you do that list. You got to focus on that list. I wouldn't really add anything to this. This is a good spell, and it works. It's a good working spell. There's another thing that I would possibly add, and that is, as I said before, get an astrological reading, and I want you to find out where your Venus and your Mars are on your chart. And you may need to do some astrological remediation around the positions of your Venus and your Mars. And I don't want to get into the whole thing because that's a 2-hour lecture on astrology, but just pay attention to that. What about you, Mary B? Do you have any thing to add at the last minute there?
I would also recommend getting yourself some personal power kind of oil to wear as a personal scent. Something like Power or Master Key that you can wear as and it doesn't, it has a scent, but it's not like a crazy loud scent. You want to dress your body with that in that way because you've been beaten down by this problem, and we want to lift you up. So in addition to the great work that Conjurman Ali came up with, you want to get yourself some like Power, Mastery, Master Key kind of oil and wear that as a perfume as well.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, because that third card I had was a card of being tired, and we don't want you to be tired. We want you to renew your faith and renew your strength so that you can really move on out and hit that change that is going to be coming. All right. Well, I hope this was of help to you, and good luck to you. Call back anytime if you have a different question, like you're about your career. That'd be fine. We'll be glad to handle you if we can. All right. Well, thank you, guys. That was a good romp through the root work. Let's turn it over to Miss Tammy Lee.
Well, yes, ma'am, Miss Cat, and y'all support for this program is provided by the Lucky Mojo Curio Company in Forestville, California, and located online at luckymojo.com, and by the Association of Independent Readers and Rootworkers, AIR, a directory of ethical and authentic conjure practitioners, located online at readersandrootworkers.org, and by the Crystal Silence League, a free online prayer service of missionary independent spiritual churches, located online at crystalsilenceleague.org. Now we're going to go ahead and go to the phones and take our next client. Our next client is actually calling back into us from late December 2013 going into January 2014, and thank you so much for being a loyal listener. And this is Quanah. Quanah, are you there, caller?
Yes. Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being a loyal listener to our show. And I'm going to go ahead and read the brief situation of your case. for our panel, and she writes, I'd like a reading on if 2015 is a good year to begin an entertainment business, and if I will find a job to help me build it, and how to do that, please. Turning it back over to you.
Well, that's a really good question. Before we start, I'm just going to ask a couple of questions about you. How old are you about?
I just turned 24. I'm a Sagittarius.
24. And what sign of the zodiac are you?
I'm a Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. All right. With that having been said, let's turn it over to ConjureMan Ali.
I had one question of my own. You said an entertainment business. I just want to clarify what exactly is it you're interested in. Are you opening up your own business, or do you want to go into the entertainment field as like an actor or singer or something along those lines?
Yes, both. I want to get into the entertainment business, but I also would like to start entertaining by doing dancing and singing. I just wanted to know if that was a good idea.
Okay, I have pulled 3 cards here to see if this is the right time for you. The first card that I have is the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords shows us an eager warrior that is charging ahead in battle at breakneck speed. And it's funny because this card came up in our last reading. But it means something differently in this case. In this case, it's one of not rushing into battle. Not rushing in. You've got the passion, you've got the interest, but success is interest plus aptitude. So you want to be a little bit sensible here. You want to make sure that you plan this out, be careful. Timing-wise, it also tells us that the beginning of the year is not going to be ideal, that while 2015 you can go into this field, it may be later in the year rather than earlier in the year. So the Knight of Swords is a card of slow down. Let's make sure we have everything sorted. Don't dive into anything too soon because it'll end up costing you and doing more damage than good. The next card tells us how to move forward. Here is the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles is a sensible woman. It is an earth sign. It is the polar opposite of the Knight Sword. The Knight of Swords is charging ahead. The Queen of Swords is built for success, brick by brick, step by step, and now she is in luxury. This is a woman who is looking at a golden coin. This is the fruit of all of her efforts. She's surrounded by a verdant, beautiful green garden. It also tells us that you are going to need a helper here, an older female who knows the business, who is sensible, who is practical, and who can help you along the way to build success. So you're 24. You want to look for someone older than you who can help you in this way. This person may very well be an earth sign themselves, or at least have very strong earthy qualities. And finally, we have Judgment. Judgment shows us the Archangel Gabriel, or Michael, depending on your interpretation, blowing the trumpet of resurrection, raising the dead, and they're all raising their hands in benediction and prayer. This is a fantastic card for you because it tells us that this is going to open up wonderful opportunities for you, that yes, 2015 is a great year. It will happen later in the year than early on, and that with help, both spiritual, as the Judgment card shows as an archangel, as well as practical, the Queen of Pentacles, you will be able to throw off the feathers of your life, anything that's holding you back, and move forward with success and blessing. So I do see you getting into the entertainment industry, but you're going to need help. You're going to need some spiritual work. Prayer work is particularly recommended in this, as well as practical work by getting help from someone who's already a veteran in the field. Also, don't move too fast, and know that it's going to happen a little bit later in the year. That gives you plenty of time to plan and get something going for yourself before diving in. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, let's see. Now we're going to go to Mary. And Mary, what do you think is going to be the case in 2015?
Well, let's take a look here. The first card that I get is the Two of Pentacles. Do you, Quana, do you currently have a day job, or what do you do during the day?
Not at the moment. Right now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm getting my daughter in school, and then I'll have more hours to go to work.
Okay. Because, the Two of Pentacles is all about balancing two things, and staying in balance is very important with this card, because the guy in the card is balancing two pentacles, but the sea behind him is very stormy. So this is thing that I think the first half of 2015 is going to be balancing and bringing everything to an equilibrium before you can get started with your business. And the next card that I get is the King of Swords. Now, the King of Swords is the most strict of the kings, but he's not a bad king. He's just strict and very practical. He takes his sword and he cuts through all of the crap, as it were. And he is telling you that you need to be very firm with yourself about your goals. Don't be wishy-washy. Don't have, scattered ideas. You've got to stand there with your sword and, do things very practically, like make a list, have a budget, get an accountant, get your legal stuff set because you want to start this once it's time to go. You want to make sure you have everything set and lined up because this is very practical. And the next card worries me just a little bit. It's the Nine of Swords, and this is somebody who is up at night, they're surrounded by swords, and they're crying. You can't let the fear of failure dictate this. In order to overcome this, you're going to need help, and you're going to have to remember to be realistic because it's going to take you, I'm not seeing you making a full-time living at this before you're 30. It's going to be a few years. I'm seeing like the next, I wouldn't say 9 years because of the Nine of Swords, but I'm seeing it's a gradual process. I think you'll eventually be able to support yourself. But before, I just got the number 30 given to me by Spirit, so I think that it's going to take you time, and like ConjureMan Ali said, you're going to need help. So the summation is keeping everything balanced. Make sure you rely on your family too, okay? And being strict with yourself and disciplined and conquering your fear of failure. That's what I see.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'm gonna toss a little bit about these two readings because I'm a reader too, and before we get into the root work aspect of it, I'm going to say one thing. Both of those folks basically answered your question. 2015 is not going to be a successful year in terms of culminating, crowning glory. The question was, is it a good year to begin? But, again, the answers had to do with scattered energy and trying to balance things. Your very question was an interesting one. If I will find a job to help me build it, and how? So you're asking, should I? Then you ask, will I find a job that will help me in this, and then how? So you yourself haven't actually refined your plan. There's doubt all the way around. And I think that came up in those cards. I think that what I'm seeing is not so much that this is an unlucky year, but it's a year in which you will be required to focus and choose what it is you want to do. When asked if you wanted to enter the entertainment field as an entertainer or have an entertainment business, such as booking people or working in some other way, you also said, oh yeah, everything. And I think that the readings show that that is not the best plan for you. So what I'm going to do, rather than show you how to break into the entertainment field, is I'm going to show you a spell to get your goals lined up. I want you to literally make a what's called in the New Age community a vision board, but I was always told just a series of choices that you're going to make. I want you to, and I know this doesn't sound like hoodoo, you're going to go, what is she talking about? And it's true. This comes from New Age and New Thought ideas. I want you to get some pictures. Get them from magazines, get them from, print them out off the internet. Make them all about the same size if you can. Don't make one more appealing than the other. Of the things you want. In other words, you want people to be looking at you. You want to have a picture of yourself on stage. Just get a good long-distance view of someone on stage with lights and a crowd, If you want to be on TV, get a good picture of yourself on TV. If you know how to composite pictures or cut them out, put yourself on a picture of a TV, whatever. I want you to get these pictures, and I want you to get 9 of them. Just 9, that's all, no more. And you can arrange them like a little tic-tac-toe square, okay? Now, why do I want you to get 9 of them? I want you to focus on no more than 9 goals. Your problem is you probably have 150 goals at this point, and they're all kind of blurring together around the edges. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. I want 9 distinct goals, whatever those may be. I want to be on this and that talent show. I want to have a bit part in this or that famous long-running TV drama. I want to have this voice acting gig. Whatever it is, I want this record contract. I want my own YouTube channel. Whatever it is that floats your boat, 9 and no more than 9. Okay? Now, I want you to get 9 little candles. Okay, now is where we get a little hoodoo on us here. I want you to get 9 little candles, and they can be yellow candles for fame and fortune. They can be white candles for the unknown, whatever it is you like. And I want you to have these 9 little candles, and you get 9 little candle holders. I use those little star holders. They're made of brass-plated steel, and you can kind of bend the little prongs, and they'll stand right up. Little candles in them. I want you to address those 9 candles, but first I want you to inscribe them. And I want you to inscribe them with the word that most summarizes that particular goal, such as 10,000 followers in Facebook. Right? Maybe that's one of your goals. I don't know what your goals are, baby. You could pick your own goals, right?
That actually is one of them.
What?
I said that is one of them.
Good, 10,000 followers on Facebook. That's fine. Another one might be, recording contract, TV appearances, whatever it is. My photo hanging on the arm of such and such famous people, whatever it is you want. Inscribe that with a needle in the form of a little spiral going around the candle. Some people call it like the barber pole type spiral. Just, you won't be able to read it afterwards. You're just going to write it, but just the act of writing that wish into that candle. And you're going to rub that candle with Crown of Success oil. I was asked, can you use tea lights? No, you cannot. This is vertical candles. And the reason why they are vertical is because you're going to be inscribing them with this little spiral, okay? Now, in between that spiral, you're going to do a second spiral, and that'll be your name. So you put your name, and then you put the wish, and then, they'll spiral around like a spiral, right? I said chime candles, and those are called chime candles because they're sometimes used to provide heat to power little Swedish Christmas chimes. They're also sometimes known better as altar lights, 4-inch altar lights. Very easy candle to purchase anywhere online. We sell them at Lucky Mojo. Now, you got these, and you can get the little holders. They're called little star holders that hold the little chime candles. So you're going to have 9 of them, right? Now, you're going to lay this thing out, and you're going to put a candle on each picture, right? Just a candle on each picture. And if you want to protect the papers so they don't burn up, and it's sometimes a good idea, you can put a piece of a sheet of glass over those pictures, or something that's non-flammable, or you can let them burn if they do burn. It might be sort of interesting, but you don't want them touching exactly. Now, you dress those candles with Crown of Success oil and a mix of that and Psychic Vision oil, because what you're looking for is a vision here of which path to take. So Psychic Vision, Crown of Success. And now you're going to light them all, and you ask the question, should I be pursuing this? Should I be pursuing that? So forth. You can light all 9 of them. Make a nice little array. And like I said, make a little space between them. We're not all having them all bunched up together. Each one will burn down in its own way. Watch them. Does some flame high? Does some flame low? Does some smoke? Does some go out? Does some drip tears of wax all over? Do some just burn out and just leave nothing but a little black husk inside the thing? Do some catch their papers on fire? Watch them. And as they burn, pay attention. It only takes about an hour and a half to burn those, so that it's only all about an hour and a half. You're going to be sitting there watching those candles burn. And the whole time, think about those 9 things, right? I believe at the end of that little ritual, which is a ritual of self-examination, but also a ritual of divination. Because, like I said, you'll watch which ones flame up, which ones don't, which burns slow, which burns fast. You'll have some idea of which things to pursue and which not to pursue. You can refine it down. Let's say 3 of them come out as the flame was the best, they looked the best, they burnt the cleanest, whatever. You got those 3? Lay them out again, 3 of them with 3 candles on them, and burn them again and watch which one is the most, and focus on that one. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you.
It does. I'm going to write it all down.
Yeah, well, just what you want to do is it's a divination on your options. It's a divination on your options. I've seen crazy things happen when I burn candles like that. Paper catches on fire. Whoops, that one went up in smoke. Be prepared. Be prepared to see something. You will see something. Sit there in a dark room. Don't be having electric lights on while you're burning these candles. Sit there in a dark room at night in a meditative state and think about them. How do you feel about those candles burning on those 9 options? Now, once you've done that, focus your energy and attention on the one that was the most successful, or the 3. If you're a Sag, you're going to want to be on all 3 of them anyway.
Oh,
all right. Well, Sagittarius like to do things in multiples. So what do you think, Mary? What would you offer to her?
I would do something like going. One thing that you could do is that you could go meditate in the forest. I would, depending on how cold it is where you are, I would go into the forest because nature, for me, nature can be very, very neutral and give you a very neutral answer. I would go into the forest and pick 9 stones, any size, color that you like. And I would find in the forest a nice open place, a little clearing or some such. And I would take all those stones in your hand. You want to be small. Don't get a big old rock, but small enough that you can fit them in the palm of your hand. Take those stones together, hold them, and pray that whichever one lands closest to you, you're going to, first what you need to do is take each stone and speak over it. Say, this is the goal for this stone. I want 10,000 followers on Facebook. That's what this stone means. I want blah, blah, blah for each one. Then you hold all the stones, you say your prayer saying whichever one lands closest to me is the goal that I'm going to focus on. So then you throw it, be careful they don't land on your head, but throw them all up in the air and you see which one lands closest to you. I like forms of divination. I like forms of divination like this because it's very neutral. It doesn't have an agenda. That's a good
one. And I'm just going to say, I've seen that one done also to figure out which boyfriend to pick. That's an old one. Yeah. We got a question in the chat room. Is it possible to have the church light them, the chive candles? No, that's the whole point. You're doing this yourself, honey. I'm not here to, you did. If you want to call in and ask me and say, I have 9 different choices, and here they are, pick which one is the best with cards, then I would have done the reading on that, you see, or Ollie would have, or Mary would have. But, that's the thing. You're not yet really focused. I'm trying to get you to do it, to get you to think. Ollie, what do you think?
I think that's brilliant. The only thing I would add is a success mojo bag. Get yourself a mojo bag with the 3rd pentacle of the sun, which brings glory and riches and fame, and put that in there with some crown of success herbs like bay leaves, 5-finger grass, deer's tongue, and a small little lodestone to help attract the things once you've decided what path to take.
That's great.
Can I hear those one more time? I heard bay leaves.
We'll type them up in the chat room. All right?
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. Good luck to you, and Ollie will put them in the chat. All right.
The LMC Radio Network is a media alliance that brings you the best in hoodoo, conjure, witchcraft, rootwork, new thought, spiritualism, and pagan ways. Our shows include the Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Rootwork Hour, live on Sundays from 3 to 4:30 Pacific Time. The Crystal Silence League Hour, The Witch, the Priestess, and the Cauldron, Mystics, Mages, and Magical Places, and the Now You Know Show. All these shows are available as audio podcasts via the Lucky Mojo Forum at forum.luckymojo.com. and at YouTube, where we make daily video uploads. Please like and subscribe at youtube.com/Lucky Mojo Curio Co. Sponsored by the Lucky Mojo Curio Company, makers of handcrafted spiritual supplies and offering the widest selection of magical herbs and roots, plus hundreds of free web pages filled with spellcasting tips and fortune-telling techniques. Our shop is located in Forestville, California, and we sell retail and wholesale online at luckymojo.com.
And y'all, our next segment of this show will be brought to you by Mary B. of MaryBConjure.com in Sunbury, Massachusetts. Mary B., free spell section.
Okay, thank you very much, Tamara.
Thank you.
What I'm recommending here is something called, it's a simple foot treatment that you can do for yourself and for your shoes. I don't think that people treat their shoes enough magically, so this is what I'm going to recommend. First part is a foot bath. You want to get yourself some 5-finger grass, some devil shoestring, and you want to brew those up into a tea. You want to let them sit with boiling water on them for 7 minutes. Strain out the herbs. Add that tea water to a large enough basin that you can get your feet into, okay? Put that in there and add a pinch of kosher salt. Stir it all up until the salt dissolves. So then you want to take off your shoes and socks, sit in there, and bathe your feet up to your knees. So you may want to roll your pants up and bathe your feet up to your knees. Bring the water so that the water runs from your knees down. And you want to pray. What you want to pray is actually the passage of Scripture where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. And that is John chapter 13, verses 1 through 17. That's the actual Scripture where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. So you want to read that out loud and pray it. Then you want to take your feet out and let them air dry. And then you want to get yourself some kind of a blessing oil. I really like 7-Eleven holy oil from Lucky Mojo. If you don't have that, you can get some plain olive oil and pray the Psalm 23 over it, and that blesses it. So you just want to dab some of that oil on the tops and the bottoms of your feet. Be careful when you walk around after doing this because you don't want to slip on your floor. You may want to put socks on afterwards. And you're going to save a cup of that bath water. Put it aside. Now, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a pair of shoes, one that you commonly wear. You want to take those shoes and you want to get yourself a little bit of plain household ammonia and some water. Mix it together. Get yourself a paper towel. Dip that towel in the water and clean the bottoms of your shoes off. You want to rub the shoes from heels to the toes. So you're brushing off any bad luck or anything you may have stepped in. Okay? So do that for both shoes. Put those shoes on. Take your reserved cup of bath water and take it to a crossroads. And as you throw it out of the crossroads, pray, may my feet walk me in prosperity and goodness all the days of my life. In Jesus' name, amen. And then turn around, walk home, and don't look back. And I recommend, I treat my shoes once a week. I take all the shoes that I wear, and I'm not a shoe hound, so if you really like shoes, ladies, this may take you some time. But I have shoes that I wear regularly, more than others, and I treat them once a week with the ammonia and water. And then I dress them with some success oil or money drawing or whatever I want to draw to me so that as I walk, it follows me wherever I go.
Wow. That's a fantastic one, and the use of ammonia, so traditional. I'm going to add just a little note on this because I have found it to be very valuable. When I was young, people often would tell me to put money in the toe of my shoe to be led to money. So you would take a penny or a dime or whatever, especially if it was a lucky penny, in other words, a penny you found face up on the street. You could take that penny and put it in your shoe, and it would always lead you to more money. So, that's just a little add-on you can do. You can, of course, oil that penny. And people say, what happens? The penny gets all round in my shoe and it's all falling around. Well, that's what they invented duct tape for. Just saying. Yes, and Papa G says that's what they invented penny loafers for. They don't make penny loafers much anymore, but these are shoes that have a little strap across the top that have a little slot in which you could put a penny. When I was young, everybody wore penny loafers, and the best people had penny loafers. The pennies that they found were lucky pennies. That is how you do it. That is exactly how you do it. And I always thought when penny loafers kind of went out of style, I was like, dang, how are you going to have your shoes lead you to money now? Because everybody wore penny loafers.
I love this type of working. I think it's great, and I thank you, Mary B., for teaching us this, because it's another one of those things that you don't hear people talk about a lot anymore, treating shoes or treating feet. But, old school down to home root work, talismans around the ankle, putting a little salt and pepper in your shoe. These were old ways of working, and I think it's great to remind people of how potent this type of work really is.
Yeah. In the chat room, Plural Dreams asked, is there a certain day of the week? Mary B. answered Sunday for success. And Nagashiva mentioned paper in my shoe. That's that old song by Buzu Shavis. A paper in your shoe is a prayer paper in your shoe, or a petition or a wish or a name paper in your shoe. And that's another thing that can be done with this kind of work once you've cleansed the feet. And I love the way that this is staged, in that the shoes are clean from heel to toe. Think about that, because ammonia is a strong cleanser, really strong cleanser, and this is a way to take off the evil. You can use any kind of success thing then to dress going the other way. Nowadays, when shoes are not made of leather so often, they're made of all of these plastic materials, oiling your shoes doesn't make as much sense as it used to when shoes were made of leather, and we polished them with wax, shoe wax, and we also corrected any scuffs with a shoe dye. And that shoe wax can have oils worked into it. But if you have leather shoes, if you are one who wears leather shoes, you can directly oil those shoes by adding the condition oils to something like neat's foot oil or any of the types of shoe waxes and stuff like that.
I do that with my leather shoes. I put a little bit of commanding oil there.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay. And Doc Murphy says it's hard to put a paper in your flip-flops. Well, that's true, but when I was young, we would draw on our flip-flops with ballpoint pens, and no one could see what we wrote.
Oh, sneaky.
All righty. Okay. Well, let's let Miss Tammy Lee close us up for the day.
Well, yes, ma'am, Miss Cat, and thank you so much, Miss Cat and Conjurman Ali, and thank you, Mary B. of MaryBConjure.com in Sudbury, Massachusetts, for being our very special guest member from air this week. And once again, you always come to the end of another Lucky Mojo Hoodoo Rootwork Hour, brought to you by the Lucky Mojo Curio Company in Forestville, California. And you can find Miss Cat via the Lucky Mojo forum at forum.luckymojo.com and Conjurman Ali at ConjurmanAli.com in Mission Viejo. I'm your announcer, Miss Tammy Lee, joining you from TripleCrownConjure.com in Pensacola, Florida. For all of us at Lucky Mojo, I'd like to thank you so much for being here and invite you to tune in once again next week at the same time, when you will hear the familiar strains of the Memphis Jug Band playing the Jug Band Waltz. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye.
Good night, Miss Tammy Lee. And thank you, everyone. Mary B. This was absolutely delightful to have you, and I hope you'll come back on the show again real soon.
Yes,
I sure will.
Do.
Thanks.
Yeah, and don't leave us too long, because we missed you. You haven't been on recently, and you're just a great person who knows a lot about this kind of work and speaks from a sincere and good heart. Everybody, check out her website and check her out, her air web page, and learn a little bit more about Miss Mary B. Thank you, Ollie. Yes, my little cohort. I don't know what you call it. My cohort co-host. So it's nice to have you here too. Thanks, Miss Tammy Lee, and thanks to Nagashiva. Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night. Happy lunatics.